The Araxian Empire had ruled the stars for over 8,000 years. Their ships, with their distinctive purple glow, were feared across the galaxy. No species had ever successfully challenged them. Most races simply surrendered when the Araxian warships appeared in their skies. Empress Teia sat on her crystalline throne aboard the Imperial flagship. Her scaled skin shimmered in the blue light of the command center. She was reviewing reports of a relatively new species that had rapidly expanded into space in just 2 centuries. Humans. "These creatures are spreading too quickly," she hissed to her chief advisor, Morrow. "They take planets we had marked for future expansion." Morrow bowed deeply, his long robes touching the polished floor. "They are primitive, Your Majesty. Their technology is basic. They have only 30 warships protecting their home system. Yet they have colonized 17 worlds already," Teia said, her long fingers tapping impatiently on the arm of her throne. "They breed quickly and adapt faster. They must be contained now." She stood up, her tall figure casting a long shadow. "Prepare the Imperial fleet. We will show these humans their proper place in the galaxy." On Earth, in the underground headquarters of the United Defense Council, Admiral Ju Park was reviewing the latest intelligence reports. At 52, she had risen through military ranks during humanity's most aggressive period of space expansion. Her short gray hair and steady gaze spoke of her experience. "The Araxians are mobilizing their central fleet," said General Hyun Kim, pointing to movement patterns on the holographic display. "All signs indicate they're preparing to approach Earth." Admiral Park nodded calmly. "As we expected, their empire has never tolerated independent neighbors. Our visible defenses will not stop them," said Commander Sun Wukang, the youngest member of the council. His worried expression reflected what many felt. "They are not meant to," Park replied. She pressed a button on the table, and the display changed to show a complex network of hidden positions throughout the solar system. "Remember, what they see is not what we have." The council members exchanged knowing glances. For decades, humanity had presented itself as technologically simple, while secretly preparing for this inevitable confrontation. 2 days later, the Araxian fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system. 500 warships, arranged in their famous arrow formation, moved toward Earth with deliberate slowness, a show of power meant to intimidate. Admiral Park stood in the Lunar Command Center, watching the enemy approach on the main screen. Lieutenant Minji Lee monitored communications beside her. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies, Admiral," said Minji. "It's the Empress herself." "On screen," Park ordered. The image of Empress Teia appeared, her yellow eyes gleaming with arrogance. Her voice was smooth but cold. "Humans of Earth," she began, "your unchecked expansion ends today. The Araxian Empire has ruled this galaxy since your ancestors lived in caves. We have watched your rapid growth with concern. You take worlds without proper permission. You ignore established galactic protocols." The Empress leaned forward, her face filling the screen. "We offer you one chance. Surrender your colonies and accept your place as a protected species under our guidance. Your homeworld will remain yours, but you will serve the Empire like all sensible races do." There was a pause as Teia's thin lips curved into what passed for a smile among her kind. "Refuse, and we will reduce your cities to ash. You have 3 solar cycles to decide. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. The command center was silent until General Kim spoke. "She expects us to beg for mercy." "Yes," Park replied. "Their intelligence is clearly incomplete. They have no idea what we've built." She turned to her communications officer. "Send our prepared response. Tell the Empress we wish to negotiate surrender terms. We need to maintain the deception a little longer." Park then activated her secure communicator. "This is Admiral Park to all stations. Authorization code: Sleeping Dragon. I repeat, Sleeping Dragon." Throughout the solar system, hidden bases acknowledged the code. Deep in Neptune's storms, beneath the surface of Europa, and within hollowed-out asteroids, crews of massive ships silently prepared. The ships had been built in absolute secrecy, using technology reverse-engineered from a crashed alien vessel found decades earlier. While the Araxians saw only 30 defensive vessels, humanity actually had 200 supercarriers hidden throughout the solar system, each one more powerful than anything the Empire had ever built. "Let them come closer," Admiral Park said quietly. "Let them think they've won. When the time is right, they'll learn that humans are not so easily conquered." The Araxian fleet moved deeper into the solar system. Their crystal ships formed a perfect pattern as they passed the orbit of Mars. On the bridge of her flagship, Empress watched Earth grow larger on the main display. It was a blue jewel against the blackness of space, wrapped in wispy white clouds. "A pretty world," she said to Commander Morrow. "It will make a fine addition to our collection of tribute planets." "Indeed, Your Majesty," Morrow agreed. "Our sensors show minimal defenses. The humans have gathered their small fleet near their moon. Only 30 ships, as our intelligence reported." Taya's eyes narrowed. "They accept their fate, then." "They have requested negotiations," Morrow replied. "They wish to discuss the terms of their surrender." The Empress smiled, showing sharp teeth. "How sensible of them. Perhaps these humans are smarter than most new species. They recognize superior power when they see it." On the lunar base, Admiral Park watched the approaching Araxian Armada on the command center's main screen. The enemy ships were arranged in a formation that looked like a giant arrow aimed at Earth. "They're so confident they didn't even send scouts ahead," General Kim remarked. "They have no idea what's waiting for them." "Pride is their weakness," Park replied. "They've conquered so many worlds without resistance that they've grown careless." Lieutenant Minji approached with a tablet. "Admiral, all carriers report ready status. The Sleeping Dragon Protocol is fully active." Park nodded. "Excellent. Now we need to keep them distracted until they're in the optimal position." She turned to her diplomatic officer. "Is our negotiation team prepared?" "Yes, Admiral," he replied. "They're ready to stall as long as needed." The neutral station where negotiations would take place orbited between Earth and the Moon. It was a simple structure, deliberately made to look hastily assembled. The human delegation arrived first, composed of 5 members led by diplomat Chunho Lee. They wore simple blue uniforms without decoration. When the Araxian delegation arrived, they came with full imperial ceremony. 6 guards in gleaming armor flanked Empress Taya as she entered the room. She wore an elaborate crown of crystal shards that caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the walls. "We appreciate your willingness to negotiate, Your Majesty," Junho said with a respectful bow. "There is little to negotiate," Taya replied coldly. "I am here to accept your surrender and explain how your people will serve the Empire." Junho kept his expression neutral. "Of course, but there are many details to discuss. The transition must be handled carefully to avoid unnecessary hardship." For the next 6 hours, the human delegation asked endless questions about every aspect of imperial rule. They requested clarifications about trade regulations, governance structures, and cultural expectations. Each time the Empress grew impatient, they would apologize profusely and ask for just a little more time to understand their new place in the galaxy. Meanwhile, the Araxian fleet continued its advance toward Earth, now positioned in what their military doctrine considered the ideal attack formation. In the Lunar Command Center, Admiral Park received regular updates from the negotiation team. "They're growing frustrated," her communications officer reported. "The Empress is threatening to end talks." "Perfect timing," Park said. "The fleet is exactly where we want them." She activated her secure channel. "All carriers, this is Admiral Park. Prepare for Phase 2 of Sleeping Dragon." Throughout the solar system, massive ships powered up their engines. Hidden in gas clouds around Jupiter, concealed in asteroid belts, and submerged in the atmospheres of Saturn and Neptune, 200 human supercarriers waited for the signal. Back at the negotiation station, Empress Taya finally lost her patience. She stood abruptly, her scaled face flushed with anger. "Enough of these meaningless questions," She snapped. You waste the Empire's time with trivial matters. Here are my final terms. Earth will surrender all colonial holdings immediately. Your military will disband. You will pay tribute of 20% of all resources. These terms are non-negotiable. Junho nodded slowly, then touched his communicator. Admiral Park, the Empress has presented her final demands. Your assessment. Park's voice came through clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. Tell Her Majesty that humanity respectfully declines her offer. Taya's eyes widened in shock. You decline. Perhaps you misunderstand your situation. My fleet stands ready to destroy your civilization. Junho smiled for the first time. Actually, Your Majesty, I believe it's you who misunderstands. He activated a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed the solar system, with the Araxian fleet highlighted in red. Admiral, Junho said, I believe it's time to show the Empress our response. With pleasure, Park replied. Sleeping Dragon is now fully awake. Across the display, blue dots began to appear all around the Araxian fleet. Dozens, then hundreds of them. On her flagship, Taya's sensors suddenly blared with warnings as massive ships appeared from nowhere, surrounding her fleet completely. The trap was sprung. Empress Taya rushed back to her flagship, her guards struggling to keep up as she stormed through the corridors. The neutral station's viewports had shown what her sensors now confirmed. The Araxian fleet was surrounded on all sides. Impossible, she hissed as she reached the command bridge. Where did they come from? Commander Morrow stood rigidly by the tactical display, his face pale with shock. They were hidden, Your Majesty. Our sensors detect 200 massive ships that simply appeared. No one can hide ships of that size. Taya slammed her fist on the control panel. No species has that technology. But the evidence filled every screen around her. Massive human vessels had emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system. Some had been concealed in the storm clouds of Jupiter. Others rose from the rings of Saturn. More appeared from behind the sun or surfaced from the dark side of various moons. Each human ship was at least twice the size of the largest Araxian vessel. Their hulls were sleek and dark, absorbing rather than reflecting light, making them nearly invisible until they activated their systems. Scan them, Taya ordered. What weapons do they carry? Morrow worked the controls with trembling hands. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database, Your Majesty. Power readings far exceed our battleships, and there are 200 of them. On the main screen, Admiral Park's face appeared. She sat calmly in what appeared to be the bridge of the largest human carrier. Empress Taya, Park said, I hope you now understand our position better. This is deception. Taya snarled. A trick. No trick, Park replied. Simply preparation. For 50 years we've built our true fleet in secret. What you saw before, our 30 defensive ships, was merely what we wanted you to see. The screen split to show different views of the human supercarriers. Each was a marvel of engineering, with smooth lines and glowing blue engines. Small fighter craft launched from their bays, forming protective screens around the larger ships. How did you hide them? Taya demanded. Our scouts visited your shipyards. You saw what we wanted you to see, Park explained. Our public shipyards build simple vessels. Our real work happened elsewhere, in underground facilities on uninhabited moons, in hollowed-out asteroids, and in the clouds of gas giants where your sensors couldn't penetrate. On the lunar base, General Kim watched with satisfaction as the tactical display showed the complete encirclement of the Araxian fleet. Position is perfect. Admiral, he reported to Park. They have nowhere to go. Admiral Park nodded. Deploy Phase 3, she ordered. Across the system, the human carriers opened special bays. From each ship emerged thousands of small drones, unmanned craft that quickly formed a tight grid around the Araxian vessels. These are defensive drones, Park explained to the Empress. They can intercept any weapon's fire and neutralize your ship's systems without destroying them. We don't want bloodshed, Empress. We never did. Taya paced the bridge, her mind racing. If you had this power, why hide it? Why not show your strength from the beginning? Because we studied your history, Park replied. The Araxian Empire respects only superior force. Had we shown our strength earlier, you would have prepared differently. Instead, you came with your main fleet, which is now surrounded. Commander Sunwoo's voice came over the comm. All drones in position, Admiral. Defensive grid complete. On the tactical display, the small blue dots of the drones formed a perfect web around the red Araxian ships. Any vessel attempting to flee would have to navigate through this net. You should also know, Park continued, that similar carrier groups are currently positioned near your key Imperial worlds. Not to attack, we're not conquerors, but to ensure our message is received clearly. This news visibly shook the Empress. Her empire had never been so thoroughly outmaneuvered. Who helped you? She demanded. No young species could develop such technology alone. Was it the Durrani? The Velstrax Collective? Admiral Park smiled slightly. No one helped us, Empress. Humans have always been good at learning and adapting. When we found that crashed alien ship in our Arctic region 70 years ago, we studied it carefully. We reverse-engineered what we could and improved upon it. Then we prepared for the day when we would meet others who might not welcome us as equals. The revelation stunned the Empress into silence. Her empire had dominated through fear and superior technology for millennia. Now, in just a few minutes, everything had changed. Your options are simple, Park said. You can order your fleet to stand down and discuss new terms of peaceful coexistence, or you can test our resolve. I strongly recommend the first option. Taya looked around her bridge, at the officers awaiting her command. Her empire's fate rested on her next decision. The galaxy was changing before her eyes. Empress Taya stood frozen on her command bridge. The screens showed the impossible. Her fleet completely surrounded by massive human ships that had appeared from nowhere. Her officers waited anxiously for orders as the seconds ticked by. Your Majesty, Commander Moro whispered urgently. We must decide. Taya's eyes narrowed. 8,000 years of imperial history rested on her shoulders. No Araxian ruler had ever surrendered. But no Araxian ruler had ever faced such overwhelming force. Prepare main weapons, she finally ordered. Target their largest carrier. Empress, Moro protested. Their defensive grid is. I gave an order. Taya shouted, her scales flaring with anger. The Empire does not bow to primitives. On the Lunar Command Center, Admiral Park watched as energy readings spiked across the Araxian fleet. They're powering weapons, reported Lieutenant Minji. Park nodded calmly. As expected, activate defensive protocols. As the Araxian flagship fired its main cannon, a beam of destructive purple energy that could normally split a planet's crust, something unexpected happened. The beam struck the nearest drone and simply stopped. The small unmanned craft absorbed the energy completely, its shields briefly glowing bright blue before returning to normal. Impossible, Taya whispered. The human ships remained motionless, making no move to counterattack. Admiral Park's face appeared on the main screen again. That was unwise, Empress, she said. Please note that we have not returned fire. We could have destroyed your flagship just now, but that is not our goal. We seek understanding, not destruction. Taya's rage boiled over. You mock us? The Araxian Empire has ruled the stars since your ancestors were living in mud huts. We will not be lectured by newcomers. She turned to her weapons officer. All ships, fire everything. The Araxian fleet erupted in a dazzling display of destructive power. Hundreds of energy beams, missiles, and plasma torpedoes launched toward the human vessels. Each attack met the same fate, complete absorption by the defensive drone network. In the Lunar Command Center, General Kim watched with professional admiration. The energy absorption systems are working perfectly, he noted. Our engineers deserve medals. Admiral Park nodded. Now it's time to show them what we can do. Commander Sunwoo, execute Precision Strike Alpha. Yes, Admiral, Sunwoo replied, sending the command. From the nearest human carrier, a single small craft emerged. It accelerated toward the Araxian flagship at impossible speed, weaving through the continuing barrage of enemy fire. Before the Araxians could react, it had attached itself to their hull. "What is that?" Taya demanded. Her question was answered seconds later when every system on her flagship suddenly went dark. The lights, engines, weapons, even life support, all shut down simultaneously. Only the emergency backup systems remained, providing minimal power for air and gravity. Similar craft struck 20 other key ships in the Araxian fleet with the same result. 1/5 of their vessels floated powerless in space. Targeted EMP devices, Park explained through the emergency communication channel that remained open. Your ships are disabled but not destroyed. Your crews are unharmed. Taya stared in disbelief at her darkened bridge, lit only by emergency red lights. This is not possible. Let me be clear, Empress, Park continued. We could disable your entire fleet this way. We could destroy it if we wished. But we are not conquerors like you. We want peace. For the first time in her long rule, Taya felt true fear. Not for herself, but for her empire. She had led her people into a trap from which there was no military escape. "What do you want?" she finally asked, her voice quieter now. "Recognition," Park replied simply. "Humanity will not be your subjects. We claim the right to our worlds and our future. We propose a treaty of mutual respect and cooperation." From the disabled Araxian ships came no further attacks. The weapons officers looked to their Empress, awaiting orders that didn't come. Taya had sunk into her command chair, her mind racing through options and finding none. "I could order my remaining ships to fight to the death," she finally said. "You could," Park agreed. "And they would die for nothing. Is that what an Empress does? Sacrifice her people for pride?" These words struck deeper than any weapon. Through the viewports, Taya could see human shuttles approaching the disabled Araxian vessels, carrying technical teams to restore basic systems. "They're helping our ships," Morrow observed with confusion. "Because we're not your enemy," Park explained. "Unless you force us to be." Taya straightened in her chair. 8,000 years of imperial history now demanded a decision only she could make. For the first time, the Araxian Empire would need to negotiate as equals. "I will speak with you," she said finally, "but not as a defeated ruler. As one who recognizes a worthy power." Admiral Park nodded respectfully. "That is all we ask. Shall we begin?" 3 months after the confrontation in Earth's solar system, representatives from 12 galactic species gathered on the moon. The newly constructed Hall of Accord gleamed under Earth's light. Its crystal dome allowed the blue planet to be seen overhead, a constant reminder of where this historic meeting was taking place. Empress Taya entered the hall wearing simpler robes than her usual imperial attire. She still carried herself with pride, but the arrogance that had defined her for centuries was tempered now. 4 Araxian advisors followed her, their expressions carefully neutral as they passed representatives from worlds that had once feared them. Admiral Park greeted each delegation personally. When she reached Taya, they exchanged the formal bow that had been negotiated as a sign of mutual respect, neither submissive nor dominant. "The hall is magnificent," Taya admitted, looking up at the dome. "Your builders work quickly." "We've had practice," Park replied. "When you colonize 17 worlds in 2 centuries, you learn efficiency." The central table was round, another symbolic choice. As the delegates took their seats, Park opened the proceedings. "Today we sign the Treaty of Sol," she announced. "This agreement establishes new principles for relations between our civilizations. No longer will conquest and subjugation be the way of the stars." The treaty itself was displayed on screens around the room. Its key provisions were simple: recognition of each species' right to self-determination, established borders for all current territories, protocols for peaceful resolution of disputes, and, most importantly, a framework for technology sharing. The Araxian Empire agrees to recognize all human colonies as sovereign territory, Taya stated formally. We renounce all claims to these worlds. She paused, then added words no Araxian ruler had ever spoken. We acknowledge humanity as our equal in the galaxy. The weight of this concession was not lost on anyone present. Several delegates from smaller worlds exchanged glances of amazement. The empire that had demanded tribute for millennia was accepting limits to its power. After the formal statements, the delegates reviewed technological exchange proposals. Earth offered advances in sustainable energy, medical treatments, and terraforming techniques that could transform struggling colonies. These innovations could help billions across the galaxy, noted the representative from Proxima Centauri, a world that had suffered under harsh conditions for generations. That is our hope, Park agreed. Progress should benefit all, not just the powerful. During a break in the proceedings, Taya found herself alone with Admiral Park, near a viewport overlooking the lunar landscape. Your technology, Taya said quietly. It's beyond anything we've seen. Those carriers, the energy absorption systems, they're at least a century ahead of what your civilization should possess. Park smiled slightly. As I explained, we learn quickly. Not that quickly, Taya countered. No species develops such advances in isolation. Someone helped you. Park looked out at the stars for a long moment before answering. 70 years ago, we found a crashed ship in our Arctic region. Not Araxian. Not from any species we've met yet. We studied it, learned from it, improved upon what we found. Taya's eyes widened. You encountered the precursors and survived. If that's what you call them. We never met the crew. The ship was abandoned. Park turned to face the Empress directly. We prepared for this day because we studied galactic history. We knew what happens to species that can't defend themselves. When the delegates reconvened, the final articles of the treaty were reviewed. One provision created a new galactic council where all species would have equal voice, replacing the imperial edicts that had governed for thousands of years. As Taya placed her seal on the document, she leaned closer to Park. You could have destroyed us, she whispered. Why didn't you? Because that's not who we are, Park replied simply. Humanity doesn't seek dominance. We seek partnership. Later that evening, a celebration was held in the Great Hall. Representatives who had once been bitter enemies now cautiously mingled. Commander Sunwoo approached Admiral Park with a glass of champagne. To victory, he said quietly. Park shook her head. Not victory. To understanding. Across the room, Empress Taya watched the humans with newfound respect. They had achieved what no species had done in 8 millennia. They had forced the Araxian Empire to change. Not through brutality, but through preparation and restraint. As the Earth rose over the lunar horizon, casting blue light through the crystal dome, General Hyum Kim joined Park by the window. Was it worth all those years of secrecy? He asked. All those resources poured into ships we hoped never to use. Admiral Park watched as human officers chatted with Araxian commanders, exchanging stories and cautiously building bridges between their worlds. Look at them, she said, former enemies, now talking as equals. Yes, it was worth it. This isn't just peace through strength. It's the beginning of something better. The stars seemed brighter that night, witnesses to the dawn of a new age in the galaxy.